If players simply didn't buy these crates, they would not be added to games in the future.
Right? Wrong!
What is up, everyone? How are y'all doing? And today, oh god, I'm sure many of you have seen Ubisoft's response to shoving the boxes in another game that I have loved for a long time because, ugh, god, this cancer is spreading. But I wanted to give a little insight just from a dev's perspective and why they're wrong. So I'm gonna go through this bit by bit and point out all the times they are bullshitting you. Hey, so, as it's been pointed out, these loot crates are purely cosmetic. I do appreciate why players feel the way they do about them. Not a huge fan myself. However, as it is also pointed out, you can always just not buy them. No shit, that doesn't make the problem go away. And I'm gonna get into why that's not entirely an honest statement. And I'd also like to point out, stop doing the purely cosmetic garbage. Cut that shit out, please. Cosmetics matter in a game. Visuals matter. Of course, at the core of your game, it has to be fun to play. But when you are making an experience like this, cosmetics do matter to an extent because you want to personalize your character, and when you dangle all this stuff over their head, and just going, too bad, you can't have it unless you buy it, and then when you buy it, we might give it to you. If they can't see the problem there, I don't know what to tell them. I, for one, am a huge player that focuses largely on cosmetics. I make games harder for myself so I can wear what I want. So when you jack shit from me, seriously, like in Dark Souls, I wear crap armor and make the game a nightmare for myself, but it's because I like the way my character looks. Because that impacts the fun of the game for me. If my character looks dopey and ugly, it really does bother the shit out of me, and it does with other people too. So cut the cosmetic crap. Ultimately, they're intended for players who want something to help them stand out from the crowd when playing online, or even just those who are big fans of the game and want to support us further. Okay, but again, that's the point with these multiplayer games. People want things to stand out. People like to wear them when they earn them. That's the thing though, in these multiplayer experiences, where people are going to be interacting with other people, people like to show their creativity in their characters and their appearance. They like standing out from the crowd, and you are blocking that off from them behind a paywall, and then on top of that, you might get what you want. You don't even give them what they want. And you guys, you developers, here's on a side note, a lot of people get mad at the developers a lot. Keep in mind, it's not fully the developers. Don't go after the artists, don't go after the programmers. This is corporate who does these things and forces it down their throats. Obviously, there are some developers who defend it, but I don't like when people go for people like in a position that I would go into, like a level design position, and then point the finger at me saying, I support this. Just for people, for future reference, don't do that, it's not them. Yes, it means some players end up spending more on our games than others, and that does result in increased profits for us. It also helps us put more money into titles and to understand what players look for in their games, and I have to cut it right there. Okay, this is bullshit, and I'm going to explain why they keep pulling the... I know they didn't say it by quote here, but they pull, like EA does this, where they say game development costs go up and up and up, everything gets harder and harder and harder. That's untrue. There has been software after software after software coming out making games increasingly easy to create. Some games go up in price, but some games have been getting extraordinarily cheap to make, to the point where some specialized people in the industry are afraid of losing their jobs to software because software can do their jobs for them. Keep in mind, back in the 90s or even early 2000s, if you wanted to make a game, you had to go find someone who was a millionaire who was willing to invest in your project after you had to pitch to them, and then maybe you would get your game made. Now, all you need is a shitty computer and you can make a game. I'm not even exaggerating, that's really all you need. Recently, texture artists, people who specialize in textures, they're going away. They're starting to disappear because there is software coming out that allows the modelers to take over for the texture artists, because programs can just take over for them and do things procedurally. Some places still have dedicated texture artists, I believe like Naughty Dog and like the really big places, but now texture artist is not a viable position anymore. That was a tangent, but you get the point, that a lot of games you can use less and less people to make bigger and bigger games. And here's where the part that actually pisses me off, and where they've been dishonest to everybody over and over and over. Every single company that tries to do this and they say these things, it's bullshit. If players simply didn't buy these crates, they would not be added to games in the future. This is complete horseshit. That is not true. That's not how it works. And people keep saying, just don't buy the boxes, just don't buy the boxes. That's not how this works. What you have to do is not buy the game. But if people keep buying the base game and their sales stay the same plus or increase, usually increase, of the base game, the boxes basically just add frosting on the cake at this point, because these systems are extremely easy to implement, where I guarantee you they probably have templates of how to integrate these into games. And if their game sales are still the same but people don't buy it, well, okay, well, what's the loss for us? Because there will be people who will buy it. I think something like 70% of revenue generated off microtransactions comes from like a few select small group of people who are addicted to these things and keep shoving money in it. So if you leave the game sales the same or increase, but you're not buying the boxes, there's always going to be people who are dumb enough to waste money in these things. So once you take a hit to their overall sales of the game, then they'll start listening. Look at Battlefront. Their sales of the overall game got hit and they backed down from it. Not completely, but they did, and now with their future games, they're scared to put them in. At least in their more mainstream gamer-centric type games. I'm not talking like FIFA and stuff, because that's a different audience. But you guys need to see the game. If you see boxes, you have to go, I will not buy this game, and then that will get them to listen. And before somebody brings up, weren't you playing Wildlands earlier? It was a gift. I didn't know they were in there because they're not super intrusive. I never bought them, and I always tell people not to buy them. I'm just saying, if I knew they were in there, I would not have gotten the game before someone says that. Even though I absolutely adore it. But again, never buy them. All in all, loot crates / cosmetic items in general have been a huge boon for the gaming industry.
Excuse me, what?
Being a driving factor in the increased popularity of gaming over the past decade or so.
Boy, if you don't get—
Are you sure about that? You wanna go tell that to Battlefront 2? You wanna go tell that to their overall game sales numbers? You wanna say those have been good for the game industry? I mean, they are for your profits, but for the consumer, they're not. For the consumer, they keep giving you watered down games, ripping cosmetics from you, and cutting these parts out and selling it back to you. And then people think it's okay because the game industry is growing, and these guys don't know this is not why it's growing. It's because games have become more and more mainstream over the years. In my opinion, from what I've seen in my group, so of course, don't take my word for this as an overall, boxes have made gaming worse for all of me and my friends as we avoid buying games with it. I absolutely love Trials, and I have a bunch of them. But the second I saw this, I was like, no, I don't want it now. I was like, you had to do that. You had to fucking do this. But just the balls on them to say this was good for the industry shows you clearly that these people do not listen to their fans. They're looking at the profit numbers. Anyway, they aren't a bad thing if done right. And this might sound crazy, but I agree with him here. I do. And there are ways to do it right. And I want to show you. Let's go to one of my favorite games. Let me go to one of my favorite game series. Alright? Look at this here. You see this? See this picture? There are loot boxes in this picture. Can you see where? Right there. You see that? This is a way to do a randomized reward right. Obviously, you can influence the outcome to an extent. But if they're implemented free, another game I can think of off the top of my head is Lost Planet 2. You earn credits in the game, or you kill the monster and you get your randomized rewards as you would with one of those. But the thing is, you don't pay fucking money for it, and you can't pay money to get them. So it actually makes it more rewarding to get cosmetics, to get weapons, when you actually earn them in the game. They are never good when you have to pay money for them. So you're half right. They are good if you get it, if you make it something that's free in the game. They are not good when you implement them and charge money for them. And then just to add a nice little middle finger at the end there, your feedback on the topic is still very much appreciated, as this is a hotly debated topic. Clearly, you don't appreciate it because you're completely delusional with this opinion. I do hope you consider the impact it would actually have on your enjoyment of the game, though. Fuck off. Stop being patronizing to your consumers. Stop telling this is good for them when they're making their voice clear that it does impact the game. I am not shitting you. With a massive turnoff for me with Fortnite, I don't play it, but one of the massive turnoffs for me when I was trying it was that I could not customize my character. I could only use preset characters and get costumes. I am not exaggerating. That is a massive turnoff for me when I cannot customize my characters in games. So fuck off. There are other people who are upset that they can't do this in a Trials game when you could before for free. And yes, I enjoyed earning the stuff in Trials Evolution to make my character look unique. Everybody liked the flight suit helmet. Everybody wanted the flight suit gear because it was fucking cool looking. Nobody wanted to use the default stuff. There was a reason for that. You understand this, and you are feeding out bullshit. Stop it. This is not good for the game industry. This is not good for the players, especially. And look, people know me. I am a pretty libertarian person, and I never like government stepping in anywhere. But it's getting at the point where you're pushing their backs to the wall because you're shoving these things in here that trigger the same psychological triggers as gambling, and you are getting these ratings down to E. And kids, and I'm not gonna lie, if I was a kid, I would be buying these things. If I was a kid and I didn't know better, I completely would have bought into this. And look, even now, and look, if we can get this regulated out without the government, great. But at this point, they're pushing their backs to the wall because children are involved and it's doing damaging things to children. If you're an adult and spend 30 grand on these things, that's your fault. That's not the game's fault. But for children, you get what I mean. Anyway, I'm sorry. I had to rant about this because I'm sick of these fucking bullshit excuses that these companies still give you, and that there are people who defend this shit. And I'm like, I know how some of this inner working works and how this is a load of shit, and that the people who defend it know that they are lying to your face. Anyway, I hope you all have a good one. I gotta go take a break. Fuck this. I'm out. I'm done. Fuck off, Ubisoft. Stay away from Rayman. I swear to God.